who has been a part of the reporting on this. And Adam, can you take us through what transpired yesterday?
Yesterday was a wild day, and I think if we go back to the season, there have been whispers and murmurs about things that have been happening, and Michigan's HR department looked into it and found no wrongdoing. Now, clearly something transpired here this week that changed things, that changed the equation to lead Michigan to fire Sherrone Moore with cause and to say that he had an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. That leads to a series of events yesterday that culminates with him showing up somewhere and him being detained in the Washington County jail. Now, we've heard Michigan's side of this. It feels like he had an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. What we haven't heard yet is Sherrone Moore's side of this. And he gets his say into this particular situation as well. And I do know that he felt like people had it in for him for an awful long time there while he was at Michigan. He felt like there were people who were out to get him. So all of these things can all be true. It's possible that, yes, Michigan does have evidence that he had an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. And it could be that Sherrone Moore is right, that people had it in for him. But the whole situation itself is just sad and tragic, because now we have a individual who had his professional life, his personal life completely upended. We have a school with a bunch of players who don't have a coach to turn to right now. We have a school in search of a program, a new coach to lead forth that program. There are a whole host of things that have transpired here that have led this to be a completely surreal, wild situation that if you heard about it, you wouldn't believe it because it almost seems made up.
Adam, thank you for the information. Number one, when we talk about a staffer, are we talking about somebody that's in a subordinate position, number one? Number two, yes. How long has this investigation been going on? The way it came out, a lot of people are acting like it's something that Michigan just found out, but there are other reports that were saying that it was an ongoing investigation where discovery ultimately came about over the last few days. What can you tell us about that?
Well, my understanding, again, is there had been talk and whispers about this for weeks, if not longer. This is not something that surprised a lot of people around the Michigan football program. This is not something that surprised a lot of people. If I'm hearing about it weeks ago, then other people are hearing about it. Now, again, my understanding is that HR looked into it weeks ago, and HR was unable to corroborate any of the claims that people had made or any of the accusations that had been levied. Again, yesterday, Michigan makes the decision to fire him with cause. The first black head coach in school's history, a man who had been a part of the national championship team a couple of years ago, a man who was viewed as a leader, who they gave a 5-year contract worth $5.5 million a year to. They made the decision this week to fire him with cause and to put out there that he had an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. You don't do that unless you feel like you have irrefutable evidence in the eyes of the university. Something changed this week where something or somebody came forward to the school and presented evidence that changed the school's mind and caused it to act the way that it did.
Schefter, when you say
any credibility whatsoever to the, I don't want to use the word conspiracy theorist, but any credibility whatsoever to the notion that Michigan wasn't necessarily high on him before this incident took place. And obviously, you know, a buyout is only about $14 million, so I can't imagine that that's a big deal. But I'm wondering how they were feeling about him before all of this stuff unfolded. What can you tell us about that?
I believe that he had key support in the positions and places that mattered. I believe that this evidence that was uncovered here resulted in the situation unfolding the way it did. Now, again, I want to be very clear, Stephen A. This is the Michigan version, and Sherrone Moore is entitled to his version. And I think he would agree with what you're saying, that there were people out to get him. I think he actually definitely would agree with that and has felt that way as a coach at the University of Michigan. But I think in this particular case, both things can be right. There were people that were out to get him, perhaps, and he was made to feel a certain way. And there was evidence that turned up that implicated him in the school's eyes, that led the school to act the way that it did. I think in this case, both things actually can be true.
All right. Look, there's a lot of layers to this story at this point, and if you have the internet, you know there are other questions to it as well. Those will come out as they may. We're going to stick to the facts and what Adam Schefter is reporting to us here on First Take. And so let's bring in Ryan Clark and Paul Feinbaum here into this conversation. RC, I know you wanted to ask Adam something. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you said Sherrone Moore will have his opportunity to tell his side of the story, what do you mean by that, Adam?
Well, he has his version of how these events transpired. He has his version of thinking that people were out to get him. He has his version for the way this unfolded. He has his version of that relationship with that staffer where the school says it was an inappropriate relationship, that the school clearly feels like it has evidence to prove that that's the case. It wouldn't just go, I don't believe, and fire him for cause if it didn't have some sort of smoking gun. But again, Sherrone Moore is allowed to say, hey, you say this, but this is what happened, and this is my version of the story. I don't know how he would respond to that and what evidence he has that that is not true, but clearly the school feels like it has overwhelming evidence that it was left no choice but to make this decision.
Go ahead. Paul, I know you want to jump in here. What do you got?
Yeah, Adam, I'm just a little bit confused. It may very well be true that everyone was out to get him or some of the people were out to get him, but that doesn't change the facts of the story as the school sees them. And the HR did not find whatever they did not find, but the HR is actually not the FBI. They eventually found something. So I'm trying to understand how two things can be true. If indeed the university found irrefutable evidence against Sherrone Moore, then they did the right thing, and he can certainly take legal recourse. But it feels like you are suggesting that maybe he has been outed because people just didn't like him or out to get him. And that's a pretty dramatic change of things here, because if he did what we believe he did, it's a pretty pathetic thing for somebody to wonder if just because somebody may have been out to get him, he lost his job.
No, Paul, let me be very clear. I'm saying the school fired him for cause because it felt that reason. I'm saying that we haven't heard Sherrone Moore's version of events. All I'm saying is he's got his side that we haven't heard. That's all. I'm just trying to give a voice to somebody that we haven't heard from, who's had his personal and professional life completely upended. Clearly, there are questions about his judgment. We're not here to argue that. But again, he can't defend himself, and I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just trying to say this is what could be happening, and he is entitled to his version of events, whatever they are.
Yep.
Stephen A.
Absolutely.
No.
You're good? Okay.
I'm just listening right now. Go ahead.
Okay, well, let's move this forward a little bit here, because obviously the most important thing is the well-being of all these individuals involved in this very unfortunate situation. But this is a sports network and a sports show, and so we're going to push forward. The timing, obviously, not ideal for Michigan. January 2nd, a huge day in college football. They have a bowl game coming up in 2 or 3 weeks. And so now we have to look forward for the University of Michigan and what they should do at the head coaching position. And so, guys, when you look at Michigan and what they have in front of them and the type of university, this is a top 5 coaching job, you could argue. I'll let you go first here, Schefter. Is there a short list, a long list here in terms of head coaches that could possibly find their way to Ann Arbor?
Well, first of all, the school has an interim president, so we have to figure out exactly who's leading the search. I would think that Ward Manuel, the AD, would have a big voice here, but that still has to be determined and established. And then I think it's Michigan. So it's one of the great jobs in all of college football, in all of sports. I would think it would attract the attention of a lot of different people. And I know, and Paul can address this better, his college football universe, not mine. Some people say the timing is of the essence. I would say it's more important to make sure that you get the timing right. And I would say that in the free-for-all world of college football, anybody is now game, contract or not. We've seen enough examples of that. So Michigan can sit back and figure out who it identifies as a leading candidate for this job. I think you can come up with any name imaginable, apply them to the university, and think, well, if Michigan's interested, there might be some mutual interest in most cases.
Polly?
Yeah, and Adam, to that point, the name that surfaced yesterday from a lot of people is Kalen DeBoer, the head coach at Alabama, who has struggled at times through a difficult first year when he did not make the playoffs and he was one of the last schools in this year. He has a critical game a week from tomorrow.